Hello and welcome to Any Arena. I am Randolph Charlton, the host for this little segment right here. And today we're going to be covering the Patriots' approach to the quarterback position and what they're going to do or possibly do with the NFL draft. So today I have a guest with me. He is from Pats Pulpit, and his name is Keagan Stiefel. Keagan, sorry. Thank you very much for your time. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Big news today, obviously. So I think it's a good time to kind of talk about this stuff after the news came out. So it definitely changed what I think their approach will be. So I'm excited to be here, excited to talk some football.
Yeah, and that's a key thing. You said the big news of the day. Earlier this morning, it was announced that the Patriots reached an agreement with Cam Newton on a contract, a one-year contract, that's going to be incentive-laden for about $14 million. So before actually getting directly into the draft, does this signing change the Patriots' approach to the position this offseason in any way?
I think it has to. I think I think most people probably expected that they would kind of take a look at Newton and see, what the contract would cost. Obviously, they felt that $14 million with incentives was reasonable to bring him back. I think without Newton, they probably would have taken a more aggressive approach during free agency. Obviously, they weren't going to go into the season with Jarrett Stidham and a rookie. I don't think that was ever in the cards. So I think they probably would have been a more aggressive in free agency. But in the draft, I don't really think this changes much. I think they've always had a plan draft wise. It might change the kind of player that they approach, but like overall grand scheme of things, I don't think it changes much.
Before this signing, my thought, or at least what I want to ask you, is Mac Jones really a top 15 quarterback in this year's class?
I have Mac Jones as my fifth guy, but I don't think he's a top 15 pick, just based off the fact of if you look at him and as a prospect, a lot of the great things that you find come from his background of where he played, who he played with, the system that he played in. It was all tailor-made to him. I don't think necessarily that most quarterbacks will get that moving on. The first overall pick, obviously, they're gonna tailor things to you. But when you get later into the first round, teams are looking for quarterbacks to fit the system that they already have in place. They're not looking to completely reinvent the wheel. And I think that's kind of what teams will need to do for Jones, which is a big ask. So I don't think he's a top 15 player, but I think he's my number 5 quarterback.
Well, if he's not a top 15 pick, would you at least say is he a fit for the Patriots and their system, or what the Patriots like to do?
I think, like, if you look at the past 20 years, he's a fit of what they have done. But taking 2020 into account, if you're really taking in the Cam Newton system that they ran last year with a lot of, added RPO stuff and not necessarily a deeper passing game, but they've worked in some more like vertical routes, stuff like that. They didn't run them a lot, but they worked them into the system. They did run them when it made sense. McDaniels is still getting used to it. But if you work all of that into consideration, I think he's still a fit, but he's much more of a fit of what they used to do, what they did with Brady, than what they did this past season.
Okay, so if the Patriots pass on Jones, then who might be a good fit for the team?
If they look to kind of add a player similar to Newton's play style to learn behind him and try to develop somebody in the middle rounds like they try to do with Stidham, I think Kellen Mond is a good fit out of Texas A&M. Very inconsistent, but he's flashed greatness in his time at A&M. He spent 4 years there. He always played well against the top tier schools like Alabama and LSU. He beat LSU once, almost beat Alabama once. I think the combined losses for A&M while he was there to Alabama were like 7 points or 8 points. Good player. And then Jamie Newman, who I think is, if you take one quarterback from this draft and compare them to Cam Newton, it's Jamie Newman. He's a physical runner, but he's not a run first guy necessarily. Kind of has wonky mechanics like Newton does. Not super consistent delivering the football, but he can do it well. And he's one of those likable guys that his teammates loved at Wake Forest, and he flashed and played well. So if you're talking early rounds, I think the two guys that fit well are Fields and Lance. If you're talking middle round, round 3 or 4, I think Mond and Newman are those guys.
Yeah, I was curious about Jamie Newman just because he transferred from Wake Forest to Georgia, but he didn't play last year because of COVID. So is he sort of a wild card in this year's draft?
I think Newman is a very long-term kind of take a flyer on him approach. It is not, this is our guy in the future. We need to give him some time to season a little bit. I think it's a flyer. He's a wild card, like you said. It's hoping that it works out. You pick him and you hope it works out. But I wouldn't put any significant chips into the pot to think that Newman's going to be your next starting quarterback.
From what you're saying, it sounds like the Patriots might not get their franchise quarterback if they don't trade up for him, for either Lance or for Fields. If they don't trade up for a quarterback, they might not get their franchise guy in 2021. They might be pushing to 2022. Is that sort of what you think might happen?
Yeah, I mean, it takes time. These, look, watching the Patriots, we've all watched the Patriots, obviously. People watching the show watch the Patriots for the past 20 years, and you see the same guy every single week, no matter what. He's always out there, and he's always playing well. So we've kind of been conditioned to think that that's how things work. You got a franchise quarterback, and that's how, but that's not how it works. You've seen other teams struggle to find the guy for a long time. The Patriots are going to have kind of they're in the same situation other teams have been in, to where you're looking for a good bridge guy, right away. You lost Brady. You look for a good bridge guy in Newton. I think he was okay last year. All of the factors around him were horrible. I mean, he had some of the worst luck you could have as a starting quarterback last year, with all the factors around him. So you're kind of hoping that he can be a really good bridge guy this year, and you might get your quarterback. But if you're not trading up for him, then you're probably in the same boat that you are right now next year.
All right, well, let's have a little bit of fun here. Give me a overrated quarterback and an underrated quarterback in this year's class.
I don't want to say Zach Wilson's overrated because I think he's very good. I think he's going to be good at the next level, depending on what situation he's put in, because that's the number one thing. What situation are these quarterbacks going to get put in? So it's hard putting that tag on Wilson because I like him. I think he's a good player, but I'd have to say Wilson just because he's not a number 2 pick. In my eyes, he's never been better than Fields. I don't think he'll ever be better than Fields. I think Fields is far and away a better player than he is. So I'll say he's overrated just because there are a lot of people who have him higher than Fields, and that's just plain wrong in my eyes. An underrated quarterback, there are a lot of middle-of-the-pack guys that I think are correctly, slated as middle-of-the-pack guys. I think Kyle Trask is a middle-of-the-road flyer guy. Newman's a flyer guy. Even Mond, in my eyes, is kind of a flyer. But a guy that I like is Davis Mills. He did not play a lot at Stanford. He did not play well, really, at Stanford, but he's kind of got all the tools that you look for in a pocket passer. And even though he's a flyer, a lot of people have him rated as like the 8th, 9th, 10th best quarterback in this draft. I think he's kind of a step below Newman and Mond, but he's right there, in with those guys kind of in that same boat. So probably not a name that a lot of people know or really will pay attention to, but I think he's got a chance to be productive if he ever gets a shot to play.
I've seen him linked to the Patriots in a couple of mock drafts as like a day 3 selection. So right. I'm not surprised about the David Mills. I watched a little bit of video. I kind of see where people are coming from. And also, one last thing, what I like to do personally, if I'm doing a mock draft, I have one based on what I think the Patriots will do, and then I do one based on what I hope the Patriots do. Right. So in your mind, as far as the quarterback position, what would you hope the Patriots do in the draft?
Trade up and get Trey Lance. I think it's the perfect situation. Who else in the NFL would you really want Trey Lance to learn from in a perfect situation? I don't think there's anybody better for him to learn from than Cam Newton.
I'll say this much. It was going to be interesting to see what the Patriots were going to do this offseason as far as the quarterback position. But with the re-signing of Newton at this time, it makes it a little bit more interesting. All right, so I'm going to sign off right now. I want to thank Keagan Stiefel for his time. Very appreciated. And I'm going to get out of here and definitely see what the Patriots will do from this point on. So, for all the viewers, thank you for watching. For Any Arena, I'm Randolph Charlatan.